Hey everyone, and welcome to the third episode of Stump, where stereotypically two brown blokes talk all things cricket related. My name is Asan. Joining alongside me is Naveen, and also Harjit Singh lookalike as well. Naveen, first things first. I think life must be great being a dual cricket Australia and Indian cricket fan. Obviously India were triumphant in the ODI series against South Africa, but I think the topic right now is the Ashes. Second test done. Australia just made it look really easy despite having like a slightly weakened squad. But yeah, Naveed, like talk to me, man. Like that second test, like England came with all the talk, with all the attitude, but just weren't able to prove it, man.
I think there's been a public declaration that after the second test, the that baseball has officially died, and that from now on, all the preceding Ashes tours are going to be commemorating the death of baseball in many ways. What a game! What a game! Once again, it went to 4 days this time, so technically we had twice the amount of gameplay, which is I don't know if that's an improvement or not. In some ways, I would say an improvement on Australia's performance, even though they were so dominating in the first Ashes. I just feel like the second Ashes was just a far more clinical performance. I mean, in some ways, we saw some flashes of brilliance from England, which was good to see. But overall, Australia just brilliant, brilliant in all aspects of the game. So, yeah, I mean, as a dual supporter of India and Australia, it's a pretty good time at the moment. Yeah, I won't lie.
I mean, like I think you look at Australia's innings when they were playing as well. Literally everybody chipped in with the fact. Jake Weatherall scored a good 70 runs, and even Starkey as well, like 77. But that's the thing, like with Australia's, even though they were missing the likes of Hazelwood, Cummins, they were able to get the local boy, Michael Nestor, into the squad. And what a performance! Grabbed a fifer, bowled exceptionally well. The ball didn't really swing as much as one would have expected, but I think for Stark it was like he was bowling with a completely different ball. Great all round performance as well, and I think that's something that people kind of underestimate is how good Stark can be with the bat, especially when Australia are in a bit of a predicament. Just the way he's able to come and actually perform, and literally everyone. I think this is the first instance in a while where literally everybody scored double figure scores, starting from your openers all the way to number 11. So I think that's the thing with Australian cricket is, okay, fine, on paper, they may not look as strong as what one would expect, but boy, did they perform. And just the way they were able to humble England, was incredible to see. You look at England's approach as well to the innings as well. Mr. Consistently Inconsistent, Mr. All or Nothing, Zach Crawley scored a brilliant 76. Ollie Pope, I mean, I think there will be a lot of question marks circulating around his selection as well. Wasn't able to prove it. Even look at some of the shot selection as well that England were playing, even though they were a lot more tamer this time around, it just still didn't work for them. And I think the problem with England cricket is they don't know how to play smart. There's a plan A, and then there's nothing else after that. So I think a lot of question marks will be circulated around England. I doubt they'll be able to turn this around, even though they'll be playing in slightly more favorable conditions, like in Adelaide, Melbourne, and in Sydney. But I think Australia have got this in the bag. And I know before in our previous two videos as well, we were talking about how Australia is going to win 3-0, 4-0. But I think it's going to be 5-0 this time around, man.
Yeah, honestly, it seems that way. I mean, let's take it right back to the start of the second game. I mean, just with the selections, right from the outset. I mean, it was there was a controversial decision made not to play Nathan Lyon. Pat Cummins, who to the lead up to the game looked for all intents and purposes he was going to play, but then pulled out the last moment. Not that it really mattered in the end, but Australia start with basically 800 wickets out of their team, right? Which is kind of insane more. It's more like 900 wickets really. And going back to Stark, I mean, the guy, he's in at the end of this game, he overtook Wasim Akram. He's the highest left-handed pace bowling wicket taker of all time. The guy is one of the greats. He's definitely a great in Australian cricket. He's 35, and it feels like he's playing at the peak of his powers. He's always been a good bat. He opened a few times when he was playing in state, right? And he actually was a batter through his teenage years. So the guy knows how to bat. He's also married to one of the best batters in the world, let's be honest, in Elisa Healy. So there's always someone to give him pointers. But, another six for, right? And 8 for the match and 77 odd runs in the first innings. But yeah, as you mentioned, like England Joe Root was sensational, right? Wickets were tumbling all around him, but he just played his usual kind of an innings, the nice average Joe celebration, which was just superb. A great, 10th wicket partnership with Jofra Archer. There's been a lot of talk about whether they could have considered declaring on the first day and putting Australia into bat for maybe half an hour under lights, because that seemed to be about the only time when the pink ball was actually doing anything. Because through the days, even in the first day, the second day, third day, in fact, all the days really, during the day, the pink ball didn't really do very much, as you mentioned. It wasn't swinging very much. Stark just bowled exceptionally well, right? He bowled fuller lengths. He bowled across the batters. Plenty of questions about Ollie Pope, as you mentioned. Michael Vaughan said that watching Ollie Pope play is like the most predictable kind of a game for a commentator. He said it was like reading a book. That all Stark has to do is just push it off a little bit wide, a little bit short of a length, and he's going to try and drive on the up. And when you drive on the up in Australia, and if you're not used to it, you're going to hit it back to the bowler, which is exactly what he did, right? It's the same thing Zach Crawley did. It kind of feels like, Crawley, as you mentioned, either he's a dud or he plays an incredible scintillating innings, but he's always keen to just play through the covers and play it straight. So if you're going to be driving on the up and you're not timing it to perfection, you're going to get caught and bowled. Just to comment on Michael Nessa, the guy's 35 years old. I feel like he's been one of those really unlucky players, kind of like your Stuart McGills or even your Andy Bickles, right, from the great Australian sides of yesteryear, who's just such a talented player. He's actually also a decent bat, mind you. But he's played 3 tests, all 3 of them pink ball tests, and he finally gets a 5-wicket haul. And as incredible as he bowled, holding the same lines, he was basically bowling to an A4 sheet of paper, right? Like just outside the off stump, just straight lines, great carry, excellent repeatable action, just brilliant to see, right? So accurate. This could very well also be his final ever test, right? It's almost like a career that has sort of fallen to the sidelines because Australia have had this cartel of bowlers for the last like 6, 7, 8 years that have been absolutely incredible. But yeah, excellent work by Michael Nessa. But yeah, England, right? What's going on? They did show flashes of brilliance in the game. In the first innings, it looked like they could potentially be in the game. But once Australia came out to bat, you tell me.
Look, I think with England as well, I think there's going to be a lot of questions circulating around the middle order. You look at Pope, you look at Brooke, the way he kind of got dismissed as well. And you started questioning quite a lot of things as well, like about the batting lineup. And the question is, who would come and take over those spots as well? Jacob Bethel would be a good gamble, in my opinion, as well. Somebody that I would say kind of epitomizes that baseball aggression. But also Asa Tribe as well, somebody that was born in Jersey, played for the national team, played for Glamorgan, averages 44 in first-class cricket, and even had a really good England Lions series as well down under. Maybe he's somebody, I don't know if it's still early, but I think to select him, but I think he's somebody worth investing in the future as well. But going back to that first innings, I think the fielding was really bad. When Australia were batting, they dropped 5 catches, 3 of them absolute sitters. And had they taken those chances,
that's where they lost the match. It's where they lost the match. Yeah,
and you've kind of mentioned earlier as well that England had moments of brilliance as well, but it's a matter of consistency. It's about consistently putting out those performances as well. And you kind of look at Australian cricket as well, and it's kind of ingrained in the DNA that when it comes to half chances, they're able to successfully convert all those chances, and that's what makes the difference. Whereas with England, I feel like there's a bit of complacency, there's a bit of arrogance as well. And I think had they taken those chances, you would have been looking at a completely different outcome. And also selection as well. I understand we were talking about this earlier as well. Will Jacks was a surprising inclusion, didn't really do much with the ball, but given the conditions in the Gabba, especially in the day-night wicket, and I mentioned this in the previous video as well, where the hell was Josh Tongue? He was the perfect bowler for these conditions, especially given when Australia were batting during that twilight period, during the night period. That would have been a great moment for him to actually showcase what he's got, because he's done well in English conditions, right? And I think he would have been somebody that would have been successful in Australian conditions as well. So hopefully, come Adelaide, they'll be able to select him. But I'm not too sure. But also the issue that I have with Bazballs is the aggression, is the arrogance that they have. I remember Brendan McCullum after the second test match said that we over prepared. How the hell did you over prepare for this?
I have a bit of a hot take on that, but I'm going to save that for our end segment
Yeah, no
regarding
worries.
Brendan McCullum. But I think you're right. You know, this arrogance seems to be the real issue. And for me, I don't think I don't think anyone epitomizes the arrogance of Bazmore more, and this hurts me to say it, than Harry Brook. You know, if there was a player on the English side who could do consistently well in Australian conditions, who could play that role of stabilizing the middle order, of potentially putting pressure back on the Australians over a sustained period, it's Harry Brook. You know, he's arguably one of the most talented batters in the world. And to see him throw away his wicket, it's like stupidly, really. Like it's stupid, brash cricket that makes no sense, right? He can't stay in his crease. He's continually trying to play on the up to, I don't know, dominate bowlers. But these are bowlers, as you mentioned, these are hardened Australian bowlers who are used to Australian conditions, who don't miss out on opportunities or chances, right? You could say the Australian mentality, right, that they essentially grow up with, that they play with their entire lives, you know, and that is basically to sustain pressure on the opposition as much as possible. England need to be able to play smart. Bazball, as you mentioned, there needs to be like I wouldn't say necessarily a plan B. There's nothing wrong with being aggressive. In fact, I kind of do admire England for their approach. The fact that they're trying to do something different, the fact that they've selected a team, you know, with a certain idea and in mind to sort of revolutionize the way that you can sort of approach Test cricket. I'm actually all for it in many ways. But the key to winning games is adaptability. You can still be aggressive and adaptive to the situation, right? It's about choosing your moments, and England does not choose their moments. Australia chooses their moments intelligently, and not just in Australia and most other countries in the world, but especially in Australia. And we all know, like on the second day, like when Mitch Starc was batting out there and Boland was, you know, keeping one end for him as well, right? Like great work to Boland as well for staying in and playing defensively. You know, Starc played his natural game. He waited till the ball was in his arc, the Starc arc, as Pat Cummins calls it, right? And he knew that if he could stay out there with Boland throughout the afternoon session, right, then that meant that Australia as a team could attack in the evening. That's what it means to play aggressively, but intelligently and with a level of adaptability. And there's no reason why England can't do that. Ben Stokes and Will Jacks showed that in the second innings by applying themselves, you know, over almost two sessions. And you know, you could actually even see that by doing so, by applying themselves, by playing smart, by, you know, playing with the field and holding onto your wicket, the pressure did fall back on the Australians. You know, they started to tire. Mitchell Starc, I mean, Superman that he is, was like blowing hard ones. He really couldn't, you know, they had to rely on Doggett, they had to rely on Nessa, who bowled like fantastically. But that's how you level pressure back against the Australians, by playing smart cricket. And everyone, whether they were Australian or English supporters, anyone who was watching, everyone was just thinking, oh my goodness, you know, like if Ben Stokes does what Stokes does, this could be an incredible game, right? And it almost got to that point. But you mentioned as well, England don't take their chances. Australia, if they're in with a sniff, they take their half chances. And Steve Smith's catch of Will Jacks, it wasn't even a chance. It was half a chance, right? Alex Carey up to the stumps. You know, Steve Smith blindsided on his left, right, and able to catch it literally millimeters above the ground. That is a half chance, but they didn't drop any chances, right? And keep in mind, they've been standing out there for almost 3 hours, almost bereft of all ideas, right? But they take their chances, and that's why they win matches. And that's why England, no matter how talented they may be, how revolutionary their attitude may be, they won't win matches unless they take those chances. And they're unable to do so by the looks of it.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think, like, even with England as well, like, it seems like, given that the first test ended in 2 days, um, and given the brand of cricket, you know, the typical baseball cricket that England will play, I think what they did was heading into the second test, they wanted to become a lot more tamer. But the issue with that is, and you kind of look at some of the shot selections as well, um, like Harry Brook, for example, right? It feels like he kind of got himself set. You know, he was really like blocking it out and stuff. And then because he was so used to playing that baseball aggressive brand of cricket, when he was being contained, he just felt like, you know what, sod it all. I'm going to go for a rash shot. And they threw his wicket away. And I felt like that just kind of epitomizes England's approach to it. They're already 2-0 down. They're staring at a whitewash in my opinion. Mark Wood is out. So there's one X factor gone. Um, Question is now, like, who did they select? I think, given that the third match will be played in Adelaide, I think they would stick to Will Jacks as their frontline spinner. But yet again, I think like Australia got this in the bag. They look very dominant. They're taking their chances. On paper, they don't look that strong. But it's Australia. You can't underestimate them. And I think, hopefully Australia do win 5-0. I think that would humble England a lot. And I think England kind of deserve to go through that humbling as well. And one more thing I wanted to add as well. Basketball is a very one-dimensional approach. It only works when you're batting on absolute highways, absolute roads. You look at when England fought Pakistan and they were able to cover, 600, 700 runs.
I mean, Zach Crawley scored a double century, so.
Exactly. So, conditions are really, really favorable for batsmen when Zach Crawley is knocking up a double century. But also another thing as well. You look at the last time England came and actually won an Ashes series in Australia. That was back in 2010, 2011. You look at the preparation they had. They had a match against Prime Minister's 11, against Australia A, and I think they played against a couple of state teams as well. England only really had one warm-up match, and that was after the first match. And I remember watching the video. I can't remember who it was, but they were saying only now are England actually prepared to play cricket in Australia because their two warm-up matches were the first two tests. And whoever scheduled this itinerary really needs a hard look at themselves, because if you're going to a tour, especially in Australia, especially when you're trying to play a new brand of cricket, you can't just go there and play just one match, and that's who the warm-up matches after the first test match. Like, it makes absolutely no sense. And even having an inter-squad England versus England Lions match simply doesn't cut it. So I think the preparation was also wrong as well, which is why it had a very negative effect on England's approach. But who knows? Maybe England might bounce back in the third test match.
I hope they do, because this Ashes series, as entertaining as it has been so far, has also been like widely disappointing, because we expected a better fight from England, and they've been leading up to this. Can we just talk a little bit about Jofra Archer as well? All right. So Joff, I mean, rocks up on the second day with a pillow, which has now become a meme all over Australia. On the first day, he was bowling 130s. He'd come back into his second spell later in the day, and he'd start off with like a 128K delivery. His speed twin, his pace twin, Mark Wood, has, somewhat predictably missed a glass ankle, glass knee. Couldn't even survive a 2-day test match and is already out of the series. Can't say that we didn't expect that. That was always going to happen, unfortunately. But Jofra Archer, they've brought him onto the team because, okay, he's a genuinely talented, excellent player, right? He's an X factor. He's the X factor that you'd want in Australia, right? Harder, bouncier pitches. I mean, we just had 2 games where, the conditions would best suit really quick bowlers, right? And he was disappointing for about 85% of the match, right? Until the very end, where he decides to rock up and bowl his fastest ever spell in Test cricket, notching over 150 for like 4 to 5 balls of every over of that spell against Steve Smith. When Australia had 60 odd to chase, Steve Smith comes out there. Joffy, for whatever reason, decides to have a go at Steve Smith, who then responds. Actually, this is what was said, apparently. Jofra Archer tells Steve Smith, "Oh, you only play big shots when you've got a small total to chase." To which Steve Smith then replies, "You only bowl fast when there's nothing going on, champion." And what's even more hilarious, for those who are watching the Channel 7 broadcast, all right, Steve Smith championed him, and Ricky Ponting champed him on comms as well, telling him, it's too late in the game now, isn't it, champ? Now, for those of you who don't live in Australia or haven't traveled to Australia or don't know much about Australian slang, champing someone is basically the biggest offense you can give to someone in the sporting world, right? To call someone a champ, especially as an Australian cricketer, because they are genuine, unironic champions, right? To call someone else a champ is just basically calling them a cunt, but not in a nice, ironic kind of way. The fact that he got double champed both in the game and on the comms by punter is just hilarious. But also, where the hell was that fire? Why don't you start with that fire? It makes no sense.
But you know what? This kind of epitomizes basketball, because they've got the gift of the gob. They always talk a lot of smack, especially when they lose. And I think it's like, what do you have to back that up? I'm sorry, you just got whipped in the first test match within 2 days. The second test match, you've kind of stretched it out a bit. But still, like, where does this arrogance come from? Like, I just really don't get it. But anyways, Naveen, moving across the Tasman Sea, there was another entertaining series that was played in New Zealand. West Indies, in their weakest format, pulled off a memorable draw. And it was only a few months ago they were skittled out for 27. I think leading into the fifth day, nobody really expected West Indies to pull out a draw. But damn, what a performance. Shea Hope stepped up, finally kicking into form. Justin Greaves, 202. And also special mention to current West Indies legend, Himar Roach, 58, not a blockathon, absolute blockathon, 73 dot balls in a row. But it was incredible to see that sort of grit, that sort of determination coming from the West Indies as well. And now that the first test match is over, the second test match, they were skittled out for 204. So it seems like normal services has resumed for the West Indies. But yet again, I think this is what the ICC need to do. They need to start promoting more test cricket, especially amongst the slightly weaker nations like you said, Zimbabwe, Ireland, Afghanistan. Talk me through that. We were able to catch up on that West Indies match.
Yeah, I was able to check in here and there, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Shea Hope had an eye infection and still managed to score a very graceful 140. I mean, Shea Hope is he's such a joy to watch when he plays, right? Mm-hmm. Justin Greaves, that was a hard-fought, gritty 200 double century. I mean, maybe England could take a leaf out of their book, right, and watch them. Kemar Roach, as you mentioned, half a century with him. Blockathon also took 5 wickets in the game, so another pacer. With a 50 and 5 wickets in the game. Excellent performance from him. And, everyone will look at the West Indies. Obviously, it's incredible to see them, playing with a bit of a fighting spirit. We saw glimpses of it last year as well, when they managed to win their pink ball test against Australia with Shamar Joseph. We saw glimpses earlier this year in the second game against India where they really, given how India is sort of playing at home these days, if they had a 3-match test, it could have been a lot more interesting, right? I don't want to get my hopes up too much, but, it's the hope that kills you. But it does feel like there's a little bit of a resurgence, a bit more passion, a bit more fire coming from the West Indies test side at the moment, and that is exciting. It's also funny, we can't overlook New Zealand's performance. I mean, they were brilliant. They scored 477, 480 odd, I think it was actually. Ratan Ravindra, he's already kind of, picked as being one of the new Fab Four, so to speak. Just another excellent showcase from him. I think the young lad, he's got so much potential. And I feel like he's coming into that potential as well. Mr. Consistent, Kane Williamson's a great captain and a fantastic mentor to that team as well. But yeah, I mean, the West Indies, I know the second game now is ongoing and it's not looking great, at least in the first innings for West Indies. But they are playing with, I would say, this rejuvenated sense of hope and belief. And that can only be a good thing, not just for West Indies cricket, but cricket as a whole, right? I mean, how great it would be to see West Indies becoming a fantastic test team again. And I really hope they do. I mean, they've had great bowlers for a hot minute now, right? It's a matter of getting the batting and fielding performances up to par, especially the batting.
Yeah, I think with the batting as well, if there's one player that I think has a lot of potential, it's Alec Athanaze. Up the order, but also flexibility bat in the middle order as well. Kirk McKenzie, to an extent, I think would be a great find. Joshua De Silva, wicketkeeper, I think he's been fantastic behind the gloves. And yeah, I think with West Indies cricket now, and you look at the problems circulating West Indies cricket before, which was you've seen a lot of like great players like Andre Russell, Nicholas Ferran, Bravo, Gale retiring from West Indies cricket. But what you're seeing now are players that want to play Test cricket for West Indies. So I think going through sort of filtering out those players has actually done well for West Indies cricket so far. You may not see the results now. You'd see glimpses of it, like the pink ball test at the Gabba, the second test against India, the first test against New Zealand last week. What you're seeing now is a slow rejuvenation. I think what they need to do is sort out the batting as well. And also the bowling looks pretty good as well. You have players like Alzari Joseph, Kemar Roach, and my favorite, Jaden Seals. Really aggressive, in your face kind of bowler, but kind of reminds me of the West Indies bowling lineup, back in the 70s, just that raw, fiery passion that they have. But Naveen, we got to talk about India, South Africa, man. India cricket, I think, especially in the white ball format, they've been absolutely clinical. And you can kind of see Gautam Gambhir's influence on the white ball side. A lot of question marks circulating Gautam Gambhir's position in the test arena. But Virat Kohli, I mean, he's back in form. Two great centuries, an unbeaten half century in the final match as well. Rohit Sharma, KL Rahul as well, coming into the mix as well. But Yeah, man. Like I think India is finally finding their feet in white ball cricket again.
I mean, they're really making a statement, right? Rohit and Kohli, like they really are serious about playing in the 2027 World Cup. And Kohli, I mean, this was vintage Kohli, wasn't it? These three games, even the last match against Australia, a few weeks ago, but these three games was vintage Kohli. And it once again, it's the hope that kills you, right? Because the moment he scored the first century, everyone was like, "Ooh, Kohli, all right." It was 130 odd, but it was, done at quite a quick pace. But he's looking very comfortable. He's got the eyes are back, right? That sort of fiery look in his face. It's not that unsure or that overly friendly look that we've kind of gotten used to with Kohli over the last few years. Sorry, this was that fiery Kohli back. And then when the second century rolled around the corner, everyone was like, could Kohli potentially come back into the Test side? I'm not gonna think about that. I don't want to get too caught up in that. He said himself, Harshay Bogle, after the first game, asked him any thoughts of taking up the whites again, and he was like, "No, this is the only format I'm gonna stay in." Who knows? But anyway, and then in the third game, it just looked like he was at the peak of his powers, right? I mean, the way they chased that score in the third game, arguably the smallest of all the totals, 270 odd, right? But the way that he chased it, I mean, Jaiswal scored a maiden century and no one's even talking about it, right? A maiden ODI century in the last innings in a chasing effort. And it was a brilliant century. But despite that, no one really is talking about it, right? And Jaiswal's arguably one of the new Fab Four, if you will, that everyone's got eyes on. But the way Kohli played, it wasn't just the fact that he's racking up these numbers, it's the way in which he's playing. Like he is stepping down, lofting over long on, right? He's playing with a straight bat over the bowler's head. He's just whipping onto the leg side, which is, this is peak Kohli, right? This is Kohli from like 2015, 2016, 2017. And even in the interview after the series, right? He got player of the series. He's 22nd, mind you, a world record. He even said in the series that he feels himself that he's playing at the top of his abilities and that he feels like he's accessing levels he didn't know he had before. To me, that sounds like someone who's playing with more of a relaxed mindset. There's no doubting Kohli's fitness, right? There's always these questions about players, once they hit 35 and above, and he's 37 now. There's always questions about their fitness. There's always questions about their head and eye coordination. And with Kohli, there's never really that kind of a question. It's not really in doubt. His mental game has seemed off for years, right? And with the debacle with Gautam Gambhir, there's so much going on in the air, but it just kind of the way in which he's playing, the way in which he's sort of attacking the ball, the aggression he's bringing back just kind of shows a Kohli with a clear mindset. And there's nothing more dangerous than Kohli with a clear mindset. And like in the last game, right, we had the perfect example of the old school Kohli. As towards the end, once he hit his 50, he just accelerated, hitting boundaries everywhere just to finish off the match as soon as possible. And I don't know if you saw that, but that no-look six against Corbin Bosch, right, where he played it, smacked it way like maybe 10 rows back over long on. He didn't look at the ball. He didn't look down on the ground. Like we've seen no-look sixes where they kind of look at the pitch, right? He looked straight back at Corbin Bosch's face. He looked him straight in the eyes. He played that shot and did not turn away until Corbin Bosch just kind of like shrugged it off and turned around, and Quinton de Kock was standing at keeper just going, oh, wow. Like he was impressed. This is, I don't know, as an Indian cricket fan, as a Kohli fan, you can't help but be excited. I mean, Rohit played well. Rahul played well. Jaiswal played well. A lot of the team played well, but it's Kohli, man. What can you say?
Yeah. Like I think even then as well, I think India's success shouldn't overshadow South Africa's performance as well. I think what you're seeing is now a very young, hungry, determined South African side. I mean, okay, fine, they won the Test series 2-0, and it was quite a comprehensive victory. But you look at this ODI squad as well; they're stacked with future superstars. Corbin Bosch, like you mentioned, Dewald Brevis, Quinton de Kock is back after his temporary retirement. Markram Rickleton.
Breetzke is fantastic, isn't he? What he's basically like a Steve Smith for South Africa. He's got all the weird quirks and everything, but he's got such a flourish to his game. It's so entertaining to watch him bat.
Yeah, it's ridiculous to watch him. And I think now this is going to be a dangerous South African side. I think they have a lot of confidence after winning the WTC. And I think now
Absolutely.
they have that winning pedigree. And they've relinquished that bottle jump title. I think that's been given to Sri Lanka or some other country. But yeah, man, incredible performance by South Africa, I think.
Wait, one more quick mention. Marco Jansen. Marco Jansen has been incredible through the Test series, through the limited overs. Wow. holy cow, what a player he is. You know, he's really coming into his own. Fantastic player.
Yeah, and you're kind of you're seeing a trend now. A lot of fast bowlers being able to hold the bat now and coming in clutch when it matters the most. So a great all-round performance by Marco Jansen. I think he's going to be the spearhead of the South African bowling lineup. And when you couple that with Kagiso, Rabada, Lungi, and Gidi, I mean, I think South
Oh,
Africa is going to be a dangerous side. And I think one
so
of the
good.
favorites for the T20 World Cup. Well, Naveen, before we wrap up, I've got to ask you, with all the cricket that you've seen over the past week, what got you stumped?
All right, there are two things. There are two things I want to mention, right? One of them is a positive thing, and the other one is a, I don't know. Firstly, Alex Carey's wicket keeping in the second test had me stumped in all the best possible ways. I mean, superb. The fact that he stood up to Boland and Nessa, and mind you, these aren't people who are bowling dibbly dobblers at 110, 115. Boland was bowling 138s, and Carey did not drop or miss a single opportunity, right? He was standing up to the stumps, and every single commentator, every single wiki who was watching it was just basically saying that it's one of the greatest wicket-keeping performances ever seen, ever, right? And I agree. It was incredible. I mean, the pressure that was built on Ben Stokes, the wicket, you know, when Michael Nessa eventually took him out, sort of fending on the offside, right? I mean, Michael Nessa had been hitting that same position for about an hour, and Carey was there every single time, right? Just waiting. He did not let Ben Stokes step down the wicket and assert himself as he loves to do, especially in those clutch situations. And like I said, he's keeping 135 plus kilometers an hour, right? Like it was nothing. You know, and there were these beautiful side-on shots where it was like he was taking the ball and immediately like taking it to the stumps. Like he is catching a 136 kilometer per hour ball and just sort of gliding it towards the stumps every single delivery like it's nothing. Wow. You know, that's incredible. That's one thing. It had me stumped and floored in all the best ways. The other thing that had me stumped was the infamous remark from Brendan McCullum in the post-match in the post-match interview with Brody and Punter, you know, after the game, where he claimed that, you know, they potentially may have over-prepared. Now, everyone's taken that and soundbited it, and they've been, you know, it's and deservedly so. It just seems kind of ridiculous given England's performances. But I would argue that he actually had a bit of a point. Okay, because he mentioned as well that the follow-up to that sentence was, you know, we trained really hard for 5 days leading up to this match, which I think is kind of a fair criticism to make. Like, you don't want to overtrain or over-prepare. I think it just sort of came off in a really terrible way because of just how badly England played and the fact that, you know, half of their mistakes and half of their problems just seemed to be about arrogance, right? So it just did not come off right, right? And I do feel that he's a little bit hard done by Australia's media and all the pressure that's on them. But, you know, they followed that up now with a 4 or 5 day trip to Noosa, where they're apparently just going to take their minds off it and try and enjoy themselves for a little bit. And, you know, that's got a lot of people thinking, a lot of question marks in the air as well. So, yeah, those are the two things that had me stumped. I don't think McCullum deserves as much hatred as he's getting, but it certainly didn't sound good given the context.
Fair enough. What got me stumped was Usman Khawaja. I think this is literally the end of his career right now, especially given the first test going for a round of golf. You know, the eve of a massive series ahead. I think I
Mhm.
would say his lack of professionalism is going to be a downfall. But the thing is, he's had a history of doing this before. So I would say that, and Mark Wood's longevity was only able to bowl a handful of overs and then ruled out for the rest of the series. I think his time in Test cricket is slowly coming to an end. Very good white ball player. But I think with Test cricket and given the magnitude of the Ashes and whatnot, I would say his longevity. And yeah, those are what got me stumped as well. But Naveen, it was great doing this with you. I would love to do this with you again. It was a pleasure having you on the call. Love discussing cricket with you. Love to see you all excited, especially after India and Australia win. And thank you so much. Hope you guys like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And if you have any video ideas, feel free to let us know. Until then, take care, guys.